I'm Emily Chang, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, Amazon beats on revenue, but a big miss on earnings is dragging the stock down after hours. What the second quarter scorecard means for the online retailer's bottom line, and founder Jeff Bezos. Plus, Twitter's flatline. The struggling network beats on earnings and revenue in the second quarter, but didn't move the needle on user growth. We'll discuss its prospects for a turnaround. And Samsung unscathed. Despite the crises within over the first half of the year, business is booming for the Korean conglomerate. How it's come within striking distance of Apple's top spot as the world's most profitable company. First, to our lead. Amazon dipping in after-hours trading due to disappointment with its financial guidance, especially its projection of a potential loss in the coming quarter. The company's second quarter earnings per share, 40 cents, missed the lowest analyst estimate, results showing that Amazon is prepping to step up competition with rival Walmart and cloud computing challengers Microsoft and Alphabet. Investors continue to have faith, though, in CEO Jeff Bezos to keep the company growing by entering new categories like groceries and appliances, along with expanding abroad. Joining us now to break it all down, Technalysis Research President and guest host for the hour, Bob O'Donnell, and also with us, our Bloomberg Tech Senior Executive Editor, Brad Stone, who wrote the book on Amazon. The numbers are telling a bigger story here. What is that story?
Well, it's an old story, right? It's, top line growth, which is great, right? It's like this consistency of over 20% overall growth, retail growth, 40+% growth in the AWS business, the engine of the company. But then, investors are worried about profits, right? This is a company that's investing. There's a cost to all that free video that Amazon is lavishing on its Prime members.
So where are these expenses? Is it video? Is it fulfillment?
They don't specify, but it's video and fulfillment. They're building fulfillment centers closer to cities. That's why they can get you stuff in one day. They're making all these great shows like Transparent and The Man in the High Castle. It costs money, and every so often investors get jittery. But we should say the stock is down 2%. This is an unflappable shareholder base, and it will be probably right back tomorrow because there's still this incredible halo over the company.
Shares right now down more than 3%. Bob, what's your take?
Well, I think what's amazing about what Amazon does from a long-term perspective, and this is why Bezos is now, number one, or maybe now he isn't. If
He's
down
number
1, 2,
Anyway, point is, they're able to take investments, long-term investments in infrastructure, and turn them into products, right? AWS was the first example, but as they build out these warehouses, as they build out technologies for stores without people in them, they're going to be able to license these things that they would have to do anyway and turn them into products. And that is a very smart, shrewd, long-term perspective. And I think that's what people are buying into.
What about Whole Foods, Brad? Are we getting any more clarity on how this acquisition will play out, how it will impact the bottom line, how exactly this company will be integrated into the Amazon empire?
The answer is no. The deal hasn't closed yet. They were asked about it on the media call at 1:30. The CFO, Brian, declined to comment on it. It hasn't even passed antitrust, regulatory review. We're not even sure, if there will be regulatory scrutiny at any advanced level. So, they're not talking about that, but we can see that groceries is a major avenue of expansion for Amazon, not just the Whole Foods purchase, but Prime Now. They just entered into Singapore with Prime Now. Amazon Fresh, they're expanding. So, hopefully in the coming weeks and months, we'll learn more.
I'm also interested, Bob, in how the dynamics between brands at Amazon are changing, with Nike and Sears now selling directly to Amazon.
Well, again, what you're seeing is them building out this infrastructure capability to deliver goods in another way. Another thing I did mention is they're becoming a logistics company as well, right? So they're building the logistics they need to do groceries, which nobody's really solved yet, and Bezos loves solving problems. They're building the infrastructure to deliver other kinds of products, and they're going to take that ability, and they're going to take those skills, license them, and figure out ways to make money not only for themselves, but for other people potentially as well.
So look, we'll see how investors respond to this tomorrow, but Brad, is the confidence in Bezos deserved?
Yeah, I mean, you look at a 20-year history as a public company, and just for consistency, he kind of called a shot early on about how he was going to run the company, on free cash flow, investing for the long term. They've periodically signaled that they're entering into investment cycles where they'll spend a lot of money on things like fulfillment centers, and they operate the company with a lot of discipline. So they give you these broad estimates, but they always hit those estimates, and you do that enough times, and investors really begin to trust you. So I think he's earned a level of trust at this point.
Do you think, Bob, that this deal will accrue any antitrust scrutiny, the moves at Amazon?
Well,
how big is too big?
Well, that's a fair question, right? And as, again, they build out all these infrastructure capabilities, they start to have a larger influence even than what they're selling themselves. And of course, in the current environment and with his ownership of the Washington Post and the way Trump views that whole thing, you got to imagine, unfortunately, there's some incentive to say, maybe we should look a little that direction.
Yeah,
and despite the fact that they sat next to each other at that meeting at the White House, they're not the best of friends.
No. I mean, look at the president's tweets. But by any rational measure, it probably should pass antitrust scrutiny. Whole Foods is a small player. Amazon has no presence in groceries, but we are in a topsy-turvy political environment. Right. And yes, I mean this could get scrutiny just because Jeff Bezos right now is not the most popular guy in Washington.
And yet there is this frenzy of speculation about what will be Amazon's next big bet.
Well,
any ideas?
Let's not forget what they're doing with Alexa and voice-based computing. Small for now, but a very interesting play when we look at the perspective of they were never able to really do anything from an operating system perspective, right? They really wanted to compete against Microsoft and against Google/Alphabet and Apple. And now all of a sudden they're coming in from the side with this voice-based computing thing and all of a sudden opening up lots of different avenues. And oh, by the way, the beauty of it is across all of those platforms. So that's one to watch.
And we have to talk about the cloud, where they are the leader, and yet we saw progress at Google on this front, progress at Microsoft. The pie itself is getting bigger, but does Amazon have to worry about the competitive threat there?
I mean, the pie is getting so much larger that it's lifting all boats.
Lifting all boats.
The challenge is when they enter into these periodic price wars and it depresses the profitability of the cloud segment. That goes on and off. I don't think right now we're seeing it. The business looks very healthy. They're hiring a lot of people. They've talked about that on the calls. But this is a very hotly contested space.
Amazon shares, good for your portfolio? Good for Bezos, but good for your portfolio?
Long run, I think so.
All right. Bob O'Donnell of Technalysis, you're sticking with me throughout the show. Brad Stone, you're staying here as well. All right, coming up, another company out with its earnings. Intel, the company giving an upbeat forecast for third quarter revenue and third quarter and annual revenue, sending the shares up in extended trading. Intel's data center group, which sells server chips, posted sales of $4.4 billion in the second quarter, a gain of 9%. Revenue in the PC processor division rose 12%, even as the overall market shrank. Friday, we'll be speaking with Intel CFO Bob Swan. You can catch that interview live, 3:30 p.m. in New York, 12:30 p.m. in San Francisco. Coming up, Samsung is closing in on Apple's spot as the most profitable business in the world, despite the turmoil at the company. We will dive into what is boosting its ascent next. And Bloomberg Technology is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV, weekdays 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg. Now to another earnings mover. Verizon stock had its best day since 2008. The company reporting that it added 614,000 wireless customers in the second quarter, more than 10 times what analysts had projected. In the context of its competitors in the battle over data plans, Verizon's customer gains outpaced AT&T's surprise increase of 127,000. However, both carriers trailed T-Mobile's 817,000 jump for the second quarter. Meantime, Samsung has had it tough of late, from its exploding smartphones to its heir apparent on trial for corruption. But the company has been making positive strides, announcing booming sales in its most recent earnings report, up 20% from the previous year, and increasing operating profit by 73%. This mostly fueled by the memory chip division and the new Galaxy S8. That growth now has the company closing in on Apple's spot as the most profitable business in the world. Joining us now for a look inside the company are back with us, Brad Stone, our head of global tech. So you went to Seoul, you saw the situation on the ground. Let's first underscore how big these numbers are.
Well, I mean, first of all, Samsung was great. They collaborated on the story. They brought us in. We probably talked to 6 or 7 senior Samsung executives. We got a look at their new chip facility, Pyeongtaek, which I'd love to tell you about. But yeah, it right now is poised to be the most profitable company in the world, overtaking Apple. We'll see when Apple reports, and the largest semiconductor maker in the world, overtaking Intel. It's remarkable. So, with all of this sort of crisis around the company, its chairman, J.Y. Lee, or nominal chairman, on trial now in South Korea for corruption. The Note 7 debacle last year, it's a company that is really executing well.
Right. Last year, we had a question of whether Samsung and the brand would ever be able to recover. And here now today, talk to us about the trial of Jay Lee and how that's impacting the company.
Well, I mean, you have to understand the Samsung Group, right? It's a coalition, a consortium of 60-some public and private companies. There's a founding family that kind of hover above it all. There's a sort of coordinating group which has now been disbanded. So they're, the leaders have been, kind of charismatic figureheads dipping in to make major decisions, acquisitions, major investments. But in South Korea, this is a political situation. It's really kind of turn the tide of public opinion against these big chaebols, these big companies like Samsung.
Which are the South Korean conglomerates. I mean, what's the likelihood that he's going to emerge from this unscathed? Or
it's possible. I mean, they haven't produced a smoking gun, and the allegation is that they basically persuaded the government to put pressure on the shareholder group, this pension fund actually, to go approve a Samsung merger to shore up the family control of the whole conglomerate. There might, if there was a quid pro quo, it was probably an unspoken one. They haven't, produced a smoking gun. So I think he probably gets out of this ordeal. We'll find out in the next couple of weeks. But there is precedent for the heads of these companies to go and spend some time in prison. South Korea just seems to have a very conflicted relationship between the government, the people, and these large companies that have fueled its economy.
For all the things that Samsung is doing well, there's still this big thing that they have not tackled, which is software, which may be the primary reason that people don't buy Samsung phones or choose Apple over
they've
Samsung.
Never quite figured it out. I mean, let's do contrast. Pyeongtaek, in 2 years, they have spawned a massive semiconductor fabrication facility. I mean, Intel's been working on the chip fab in Arizona for 5+ years, right? And Trump has tried to put pressure on it to complete it. Samsung, deploys kind of militaries of construction workers and automation to go and get these things up and running. That's why they're so powerful. It's a different set of skills, the militaristic discipline, than you need for the creativity and entrepreneurship of software. As an example, they're releasing this Bixby personal assistant around the world right now, kind of their Siri, and there's been some kind of criticism how they've presented it, some in a kind of gendered manner, in how it answers queries. So this is the thing that Samsung has always had to master. There's some bright spots like Samsung Pay, it's having some traction around the world, but lots of sort of failures. Their Tizen operating system, which never caught on. It's kind of their last frontier.
So what was your impression from within the company, speaking to 6 or so executives, as you say?
Well, that they've remarkably recovered from the Note 7 debacle. It was a hard year for them last year. They've just re-released the Note 7 in South Korea. Like, what company would do that, right? The brand literally went up in flames, and they're back with it. The Note 8 is coming out soon. The Galaxy S8 is out and has gotten good reviews. So my impression is of sort of relentlessness that they deploy so many resources. They're so disciplined and efficient that they're kind of tough to beat. And like particularly on the manufacturing side, it's this area of strength that an Apple or a Google can't really counter.
Apple shares under pressure today. What does it mean for Apple given the iPhone 8 expected release in September?
I mean, the funny thing about Apple and Samsung, right? They're frenemies. Those Samsung displays are in Apple products. Samsung memory chips are in Apple products. Apple has a reliance on Samsung, even at the high end of the smartphone market. They compete. So
yet they're trying to change that, right, by designing their own chips.
Right. But they don't make them. Samsung makes the chips, and so it's a tremendously difficult competitor to unseat. And the problem is that Apple can't get out of its reliance on Samsung because Samsung has went and tortured all of the competition. So it's very hard for Apple to go and wean itself off of Samsung, and as a result, Samsung, can rely on Apple and its business to go and, basically subsidize a smartphone business that competes with it.
All right, check it out. On stands now, Brad Stone, our global tech editor, Bloomberg Businessweek. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Coming up, Twitter continues to struggle. Both monthly active users and ad revenue falling in the second quarter. We will discuss what it means for the brand next. And a reminder of our new interactive TV function. You can find it at TV Go on the Bloomberg. Watch us live. If you miss an interview, you can go back to it. You can send our producers a message. You can play along with the charts that we bring you on air for Bloomberg subscribers only. Check it out at TV Go. This is Bloomberg. Another stock we are watching, Expedia shares rising in after-hours trading after reporting revenue that beat analyst estimates in the second quarter, showing how its push to chase Airbnb in the home rental market is paying off. Expedia said its gross bookings include home rental service HomeAway rose 12% from a year earlier to $22.8 billion. Revenue rose 18% to $2.59 billion, beating analyst estimates for $2.55 billion. Well, Twitter shares tumbled the most in 9 months Thursday after a disappointing earnings report. The social network revealed it failed to boost its monthly audience in the second quarter, and in the U.S., it actually lost monthly active users, with Twitter CFO Anthony Noto admitting they don't know why. Twitter is still focusing on a long-term turnaround. However, a lot of that depends on expanding its audience. Here with us to break it all down, our Bloomberg TV editor-at-large, Corey Johnson, and our guest host, Technalysis Research President, Bob O'Donnell. So, Corey, I'll start with you. Interesting that Twitter says they have no idea why this happened. There's speculation about political fatigue. Yeah. What's your take?
Well, it's a struggling business model. It has been for a long time. I mean, the user growth numbers are important, and there was an argument made for a while that maybe the user growth numbers didn't have to be so bad. That you don't want to have 300 million TV channels. You just want to have the good stuff. So maybe enough good people are on Twitter, people like you, and maybe some other people who aren't so good, like me. But that's enough for Twitter, and that's enough for Twitter to work. The problem is what we saw in this quarter. To me, is disconcerting. Yeah, a user loss in the U.S. That's a big worry, but not least of which because those are the users that pay the most in terms of advertising dollars, or garner the most in terms of advertising dollars. The real worry was that advertising revenue in the U.S. fell a lot, even though the user number fell a little. And that's a great concern. What it means is that advertisers are paying less to reach the most mature Twitter audience out there. That's a long-term problem for this business.
What is the most perplexing about this to me is that Twitter could not be more in the center of the cultural zeitgeist than it is right now. This is where President Trump every single day is making explosive statements, breaking news, and yet Twitter's not growing or benefiting from that.
Well, but the recognition of what Twitter is has certainly grown. But if you can take the tweets, it doesn't necessarily matter for Twitter. So here's the problem. You can take the tweets of Donald Trump and other people and put them into other forms of media, and the message still gets delivered. It doesn't necessarily have to be about Twitter being mass media. And to me, this is the thing we need to think about is, maybe this notion that Twitter was ever going to appeal to an enormous mass audience has been flawed from the start. And what if instead we just say, you know what, it's a small, focused media opportunity, and it has an attractive audience that we're going to sell to. And maybe that's all that's ever going to be. Now, that changes the nature of how you think about it, how you price it, it's everything else. But unfortunately, I think
that's not happening, right? Well, here's what's happening is I thought that was going to be true. I really strongly believe that if you find the right demographic, if you know the audience you're reaching, if you know what they're interested in, Twitter should know that with all the data, advertisers will pay more for that. Well, and we see it at Facebook, but we don't see it at Twitter.
And the fact that they don't know why this is happening calls into question how much they actually know about their users and what they want. And, that's important for ad revenue and how they personalize the service. I mean, this is original content to the core, and nobody's watching.
Well, a number of people are,
but
it's
influencers.
But it's a smaller group. And again, it just raises that fundamental question of, is this a kind of service that is ever going to get mass appeal? And I still think that's a question mark.
Okay. By the way, our show is live streaming on Twitter right now. Bloomberg has a partnership with Twitter. They've put a huge, they're making a huge investment in video as a future. How optimistic are you about that?
Well, I think, we don't know within Twitter where ad sales prices are falling, right? We know that in the quarter in advertising, they had $489 million in revenue in this year's second quarter. I'm looking at their presentation from this morning. It was 500. So again, from 49, it down from 535. So where did that $46 million go? Was it just pure, straight tweets that are just letters and words, like Donald Trump-style tweets? Was it the tweets with GIFs on it? Was it the tweets with video on it that is part of the partnership that you're referring to? Twitter obviously thinks that with whatever data they have, that the kind of partnerships with video that they're emphasizing are going to work for them, are going to bring them more ad revenue. So maybe that's the clue to us that the future of Twitter is going to be in more richly embedded tweets, and that the Donald Trump-style tweets of just text, while they're getting the attention, are not getting the ad dollars.
Jack Dorsey did talk a lot about machine learning today on the call. I mean, Bob, what do you see as the path for long-term growth, and whether it happens?
Well, I mean, again, I do think that there is, you mentioned this at the beginning, the political, burnout, as it were. People are getting a little tired of some of the very nasty discussions.
I know I am.
Exactly.
And I love Twitter.
And so imagine all the people who don't necessarily love Twitter as much, who go, you know what, I've had enough of this. And so the net was zero, but my guess is they lost a bunch and then added some as well, leading to a net of zero. So fundamentally, it is how can they maintain the people that they do have and not lose more people? Because I have to imagine that that's really the problem, is that they're continuing to lose people because they're not finding value in it. I do think video-based services are good, and for the record, I actually do. I catch up on the show by watching it on Twitter. That's how I often see this program.
Have you heard it called the Trump 10? People are so sick of the news of the White House that they're going to the refrigerator and eating and gaining 10 pounds. That's not good for Twitter.
All right, we got to leave it there. Corey Johnson, our editor-at-large, Bob O'Donnell of Technalysis, you're sticking with me. We do have some breaking news out of Washington. The U.S. House of Representatives passing a $788 billion spending bill that complies with President Trump's demands to boost the military, reduce clean energy programs, and start a funding for a wall across the border.
I'm Elisa Parenti in Washington, and you're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's start with a check of your first word news. President Trump has presented the Medal of Valor to 5 police officers who responded when a man opened fire as Republican lawmakers practiced for a charity baseball game. Congressman Steve Scalise, who was wounded in the attack, was just discharged from the hospital yesterday. Telling the AP he shares a harmony of values and beliefs with the president, Attorney General Jeff Sessions says he'll stay on the job as long as Trump wants him. That's as some senators rallied around him. South Carolina's Lindsey Graham says there'll be holy hell to pay if Trump fires Sessions. Nebraska's Ben Sasse also warned against his dismissal. UK police say there are, quote, reasonable grounds to suspect local authorities of corporate manslaughter in the Grenfell Tower fire. At least 80 people died in that high-rise fire last month. The Met says it informed the royal boroughs of Chelsea and Kensington that they are under suspicion. The corruption crisis in world soccer has claimed another FIFA official. Senior Vice President Angel Maria Villar, who's under investigation for corruption, resigned today. European soccer's governing body, UEFA, also confirmed that Villar had left its executive committee after 25 years. Clashes erupted today at a sacred shrine in Jerusalem, at the center of prolonged violence between Muslims and Israelis. Skirmishes broke out after a rush to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which reopened after an 11-day Muslim boycott over Israeli security measures. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Elisa Parenti. This is Bloomberg. It's just after 5:30 p.m. Thursday here in Washington. Already 7:30 Friday morning now in Sydney. We are joined by Bloomberg's Paul Allen with a look at the markets. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Elisa. It is a big day for data out of Japan today. First off, jobless figures for the month of June. That's expected to show an improvement to 3%. CPI is expected to hold steady at 0.4%. And retail sales also expected to recover in Japan in June, up 0.4%, reversing losses from the previous month. On the markets, the Nikkei futures looking mixed. Nissan is one to watch today. Operating profit fell 13% to 153.3 billion yen. That was a miss, but Nissan reaffirming its forecast for the rest of the financial year. Also today out of Japan, earnings from Nomura, Hitachi, Komatsu and Sharp. Locally, keep an eye on the Aussie dollar, back below 80 cents, but it may not stay there for long. I'm Paul Allen in Sydney. More from Bloomberg Technology next.
Emily Chang, and this is Bloomberg Technology. The U.S. House just passed a $788 billion spending bill that includes a plan to start funding a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. This comes on the same day that the Secure Miles with All Resources and Technology Act, or SMART Act, was introduced by Texas Republican Congressman Will Hurd. It calls for a smart wall that aims to use technology to secure the border. Joining us now from Capitol Hill to discuss, Representative Hurd himself. Congressman Hurd, thanks so much for joining us. So what does this bill, this spending bill passing, mean for the wall and your plan for a smart wall?
Sure. The spending bill did a lot of other things than just fund the wall, but the wall money was in it. This is the first step in the appropriations process. It's unlikely it will survive in the Senate, and so the fight goes on. But what it does in my bill is nothing. We're going to continue to push talking about having a smart wall. People are frustrated because it's 2017 and we haven't secured the border, and we shouldn't be looking to a 4th century solution to a 21st century problem. And the SMART Act, which talks about a smart wall, uses high technology sensors, LIDAR, radar, drones in order to secure our border once and for all.
And talk about the savings of that kind of technology versus the proposed technology.
Sure. So based on this administration's budget, it's $24.5 million a mile. If you use sensor technology, drones, you can do this for under $500,000 a mile. That's a $24 million difference. And it's more effective. It's 2017. We can deploy sensors that determines whether it's a bunny rabbit or a person is coming across the border. We can deploy a drone to have that track that threat until we can deploy our most important resource, our human capital, the men and women in Border Patrol, to interdict that threat. Most of that process can be done with computer vision, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, and it's a fraction of the cost when it comes to this compared to a wall. So we should be efficient, we should be effective, and we should be making sure the men and women that are putting themselves in harm's way have all the data they need in order to do their job.
The bill draws on some insights from Oculus founder Palmer Luckey. Talk to us about their contributions.
Well, there's a number of folks that have a great experience when it comes to consumer products and augmented reality and the understanding of the different kinds of sensor technology that's available. And so being able to have folks that have that kind of experience giving guidance is great. But I hope that a number of people actually ultimately try to compete for this type of opportunity to making sure we're getting the right technology in people's hands. It's crazy. Many of these men and women in the Border Patrol, when they're patrolling the border, and I have 820 miles of the border in my district, sometimes their cell phones don't even work or their handheld radios don't even work. So these folks are blind. And in 2017, we should be able to correct this problem. And this is what we're looking to do with the Smart Wall and our SMART Act. Let's change the strategy, because having a one-size-fits-all solution to border security is the wrong way. That's how we have been doing it. We have to change the strategy.
Congressman Hurd, how will the House handle the skinny Obamacare bill?
Very good question. We'll see what the Senate is able to actually do. They're still doing votes today and likely tomorrow. This is a fluid situation, and we'll see what ultimately comes back to the House from the Senate, and that's how we'll decide whether to proceed and whether there's votes to pass what the Senate sends back.
So what do you think comes next in terms of whether Congress will avoid a government shutdown in the fall?
Well, nobody is interested in a government shutdown. We haven't had one in a while. A lot of times it's only folks in the press that ask those questions. The fact that we're trying to get this appropriations process moving before September is important. We still have a lot more of the government to fund, and we're going to be having those conversations when we get back in September. The Senate has to start their conversations around appropriations as well. So nobody wants to see a government shutdown, and ultimately how the government gets funded is likely to get decided close to the end of September. So this is something that we need to do. This is our job to get done, and nobody on either side of the aisle wants to see a shutdown.
All right, Congressman Will Hurd, thanks so much for joining us. This as the U.S. House passes a $788 billion spending bill, including funding for a border wall. Coming up, we will bring you the CEO of a French speaker startup with A-list backers, including Jay-Z. We'll dig into the company's unconventional choice for its first external partnership next. This is Bloomberg. Now to a stock we are watching. Apple shares soaring in late U.S. trading. The Chinese search giant forecasts revenue for the third quarter that topped estimates. For that quarter, Baidu sees revenue reaching $3.5 billion. Now, another stock that is moving, Apple falling nearly 2% during Thursday trading, the biggest move since June 12th, eventually closing at $150 a share. Separately, the company announced that it will discontinue two of the cheapest iPod models, the Nano and the Shuffle. The two products have already been removed from the Apple online store and will vanish from retail locations. Joining us now to discuss, Alex Webb, who covers all things Apple for us. So what does this mean?
I think they probably just weren't selling very many of them, and as you say, it's the cheapest models, so it probably doesn't add a lot of revenue to their top line. Equally, the disadvantage of these two particular models is, unlike almost every other Apple product, they can't push any services revenue through them. The traditional old business of selling songs through iTunes is kind of dissipating gradually over the years. They still sell a lot of films through it, but less and less music because of Apple Music, which people pay $10 a month for, and that is a subscription revenue service. A subscription service which drives recurring revenue and is therefore a very attractive business.
Now, we're getting new details about this Foxconn manufacturing facility that President Trump announced yesterday in Wisconsin. What do we know? So
we now know for certain that it's a $3 billion incentives package, clearly a big wedge of cash, more than 30% of the total cost, well, about 30% of the total cost of the site. One of the other really interesting stories that broke today was that the Big Six, which include Paul Ryan, finally said that they're probably not going to see a change to border taxes this year. Now, it was quite interesting. On the Wednesday, there's a huge factory by a Chinese investor announced in Paul Ryan's home district. And then the next day, Paul Ryan himself comes out and says, well, we're probably not going to be pursuing imposing taxes on imports from places like China. I don't want to imply too much cause and effect, but it's an interesting correlation.
Well, we'll be watching to see how this plan continues to unfold, including the potential for future facilities across the United States. Moving on, though, to Tesla, we're getting closer to the Model 3 unveil.
Yes, tomorrow evening, I will be in Fremont myself with some of our colleagues, and we'll be seeing Elon hand over the first models to customers. A lot of those customers will be employees who work at the Fremont site, but we will have the final confirmation of what exactly this car looks like and what it has. Maybe some slight changes to the aerodynamics and some of the software improvements, perhaps some autopilot we will see coming out of it. So there'll be a lot of Tesla fanboys watching that with great interest.
All right, well, we'll be looking forward to your reporting on that. Alex Webb, who covers Apple and sometimes Tesla for us, thanks so much for stopping by. British pay TV company Sky reporting rising profit in the fourth quarter despite increased costs for premium sports content and rising competition from Netflix and Amazon. The CEO said the business has not been distracted by a takeover bid from Rupert Murdoch's 21st Century Fox. The UK government is yet to rubber stamp that $15.4 billion deal. At the same time, broadcaster Sky announced a new piece of hardware, a sound system working with a French startup which counts rapper Jay-Z among its shareholders. I want to send it out to our Caroline Hyde in London for more. Caroline?
Emily, thank you. Yes, the French sound company is Devialet. It's backed by investors including music mogul Jay-Z, luxury leader Bernard Arnault, who is from LVMH, not to mention, of course, Trump's current favoured Foxconn. And in an exclusive interview, Devialet CEO Quentin Sanier explained the partnership with Sky, what's unique about the new Sky Soundbox they're developing, and where next we might see the startup's technology. Take a listen.
We have invented a new technology to amplify the sound, new technology in sound. We are improving the emotional performance of sound, and we consider that we have to fix the problem that our displays are wonderful, but the sound is ugly when you're watching the TV. And we have to provide to the people something, a new device that is able to fit that problem and to deliver real emotion to the people.
A new device that is going to be affordable? Because some of the production that you've made so far, some of the Phantom, for example, the speakers are incredibly high quality and of relatively high price point too.
Yes, our strategy is first of all to build the brand, to develop the De Vialet products, to develop our stores, and to put in the market very sophisticated product with the De Vialet design and the De Vialet performance. At the same time, we want to put our technology in any device that is able to provide sound. So our goal is not tomorrow to produce a car, a TV, or a laptop or a smartphone, but to put our technology in these devices. And what we are doing with Sky is to deliver something that is able to fix the problem we have with the TV and to deliver a great sound in a TV. So it's a sound box embedding all the technology able to provide a real immersive sound with your TV.
How? What sort of technology are you using that's different from everyone else's?
The sound technology we have, it's a chain between the amplification, the transducer, the speaker, and the sound, the signal processing we are using. So we have more than 100 patents in this domain. And what we are designing for Sky is a new kind of product that is embedded this technology, but to make it affordable for the people. So the goal is to be able to go in million homes with this product. So the kind of architecture we have, the kind of the way we are using the technology is not exactly what we are doing in a De Vialet product, but we are assembling the technology to make it more affordable, but at the same time to deliver really a breakthrough, stunning experience.
Do you know what sort of price the Sky Soundbox will be?
The price for the Sky subscribers will be £249. And if you are not a Sky consumer, you will pay it for £799.
And then tell us about the next steps. You've gone into surround sound for the home first, but then you're talking about automobiles, about cars, about mobile phones. What sort of other partnerships will we see? What sort of geographies will you look at?
So this is the first step with Sky in UK and in Ireland. The goal is to go everywhere in the world. So we have already contracts in Europe and in Asia, and we are going to develop also our technology in the US. So the goal before the end of the year is to unveil several contracts around the world with content and service providers embedding our technology. The second step is to do the same step in automotive domain and to be able to announce before the end of the year the first contract with car manufacturers.
And of course, you were a company that was one of the biggest fundraising rounds in Europe last year. It was 100 million euros that you raised. What, therefore, are you looking to do with this particular funding? Is it also about building your own brand, or is it helping foster the new partnerships?
The both. In fact, our technology, we are developing our technology, and we need funds to invest more and more in our technology to make it more affordable. It's what we are doing with Sky, for example. In another way, what we are going is open new stores, as we are doing for example, in New York City, and we are going to open stores in the US, in San Francisco, for example, in the coming weeks, or in Asia, as we did last week with 2 new stores in Singapore. So it's at the same time an investment for the brand and an investment for the technology.
Global ambitions there from the De Vialet CEO, Quentin Sanier. Emily.
All right, Caroline Hyde for us there in London. Thanks so much, Caroline. Well, Amazon shares are falling in late U.S. trading, and its earnings call is underway right now. We'll bring you the very latest. This is Bloomberg. A developing story we are following: Dropbox is said to be likely to hire Goldman Sachs for a possible IPO. The cloud storage company, of course, we know has been in the IPO pipeline. Now it seems as if they are getting closer. Again, Goldman Sachs likely to be hired by Dropbox to lead its IPO. Now, back to Amazon. We've been listening in to the earnings call happening at this very moment. Shares under pressure on concerns about profitability. The company also forecasting a possible loss next quarter, and the rate of margin growth is down slightly from last quarter. Back with us to discuss, our Bloomberg editor-at-large, Corey Johnson, and Technalysis Research President, and our guest host for the hour, Bob O'Donnell. So what are the interesting highlights from the call that you've seen so far?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff from Amazon on the call. We're customer focused. We're cutting costs on Amazon Web Services. We're delivering to our customer. I've decided, you know, you tend to be a skeptic. I've decided with Amazon to believe everything they say. I've decided it is easier to just believe everything that they say. And if you start to do that, the financials for this company really start to make sense. That they cut costs so consistently that every chance they have to make a profit, they pretty much run away from it. That they want to garner cash flow, but they're not going to talk about that, but they're going to try to get every sale they can, cut costs in every way that they can. And the strange thing, even in Amazon Web Services, you saw the biggest gross margin cut they've ever had before, but you also saw that in their retail sales stuff. So they're cutting costs left and right.
Now, getting some interesting detail from the CFO about the vision for groceries. They got a question from an analyst about whether they actually want people to go to stores instead of ordering a home delivery. And the CFO said they don't believe there's any one solution. They're experimenting with all models: home delivery, order and pickup, actual grocery store sales where you can browse and see it, and they're going to see how customers respond.
Well, and that's obviously the right way to go with groceries, because no one has figured out a single solution. We've seen people...
And whether there will be a single
Exactly.
solution,
I mean, for
right?
20 years, people have been trying to do online groceries, right?
Who was the biggest proponent of Webvan? Anthony Noto, currently the COO of Twitter, right?
Fair
so,
enough.
you know, when he was a Goldman analyst.
But the point being, they're going to try these things. And again, what Amazon is doing is they're building these infrastructure pieces. If they do get the Whole Foods thing, they're adding a whole bunch of retail storefronts through which they can also deliver Amazon goods, right? So again, you got to think on the long term. This is the way they have run this company for a very long time. This is the way they continue to see the world. They want to continue to invest. And now also rumors of the healthcare, that there was a startup, you know, within a secret group in there trying to do healthcare stuff. So they clearly seem willing to tackle a lot of big issues.
Right. The CFO also talking about the primary areas of investment, of course, cloud infrastructure, fulfillment centers, which we talked about, Alexa, video, India, and Prime.
I thought the big takeaway from the business to me is sort of what I expected in this was that they've got profits in Amazon Web Services, less than they had in terms of percentage of revenues, but they've got losses in selling stuff. So of the $34 billion of stuff that they sold, the stuff, right? The stuff that's probably waiting in your front doorstep as it's waiting at mine today and yours too, right? All of us. $34 billion in a quarter, and yet they lost nearly $300 million in that. But with just $4 billion in revenue on Amazon Web Services, they made nearly $1 billion in profit. So profits on Amazon Web Services, a much smaller business, losses on the giant business of retail, and the cash flow from both to grow it all.
You know, interesting, all of this, many of these new services are to drive Prime membership, to get people in the Amazon ecosystem. We have this estimate, 80-some million Prime subscribers. Can that number significantly grow?
I think it can. I definitely think it can. Again, especially as they start to talk about international expansion, but even within the U.S., because, you know,
But if you think about households, you only need one Prime membership.
That's true.
Household.
That is very true. But again, they're doing international expansion. But the other thing to think about is their ability to offer different tiers of Prime at some point in the future. If parts of Prime can add additional capabilities. I mean, for years we've all been talking about everything is going to be a service, right? Transportation is a service, this is a service, that is a service. But that model breaks down when you think I have to have 50 different companies. But if one of them has all of them and Amazon is that one, that's the opportunity.
All right, Bob O'Donnell of Technalysis, thanks so much for joining us. Corey Johnson, our editor-at-large, as always. Amazon shares still a little bit under pressure, down 2% after hours. That does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. Tomorrow we'll be speaking with Intel CFO Bob Swan. Do not miss it. This is Bloomberg.